This is going to be my first video update coming to you from Athens, Greece on this Monday morning. Let's talk about some news. Let's first let's talk about the terror attack in Istanbul. And I don't really have much to report as far as news on this terror attack. The latest reports that I've read were that most likely the Erdogan government, they claim that most likely this was done by Kurdish terrorists. And from what I understand, they've actually apprehended some of the people involved trying to flee to Syria. That's the last report that I have received. A woman accused of dropping a backpack bomb on a busy pedestrian street in the historic center of Istanbul on Sunday has been detained, along with nearly 24 other suspects allegedly linked to Kurdish terrorist groups, Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu announced early on Monday. The blast on the iconic Istiklal Avenue in Istanbul killed 6 people and left 81 injured, according to the latest tally. 5 of those injured are in intensive care, including 2 in critical condition. The person who had dropped the bomb was detained by our Istanbul Police Department, Soylu told journalists after inspecting the blast site. The Interior Minister said the people who carried out the attack are believed to be linked to the Kurdish PKK, PYD groups, according to broadcaster TRT Haber. What does this mean going forward, this terrible terrorist attack in Istanbul? A couple of things that come to mind as to what this could mean on a geopolitical level. And I don't have the answers to these questions that I'm about to pose, and I think time will tell. But here's what comes to my mind with regards to this terrorist attack, once again on a geopolitical level. The first thing that I'm thinking about is, what does this mean for Turkey, Syria, Russia? Does this mean that Turkey is going to now amp things up in Syria with regards to Kurdish activity? And of course, the U.S. is also involved there. So what does this mean for the overall stability in Syria, given that, as per these reports, from what I've read, these terrorists were looking to flee to Syria? So that's one question that I'm kind of working out, that I'm thinking about. And the other question that I'm thinking about is, given that this was, or allegedly this was, Kurdish terrorist attack, will this harden Turkey's stance vis-a-vis Finland and Sweden and NATO, given that one of the Turkish conditions to the approval of these countries to join NATO is that they extradite various people that they believe to be associated with terrorist attacks and the Kurdish terrorist organizations. So what does this mean for Finland, Sweden, Turkey, and NATO? Just a couple of questions. I don't have the answers. I don't think anyone's going to be able to answer these things right now, but maybe the next week or two, we'll see if this terrorist attack has any impact on Syria, and if it has any impact going forward with regards to Erdogan and Turkey's vote for Finland and Sweden to enter NATO, and their conditions with regards to those countries entering NATO being connected to extraditing various Kurdish officials, of which Turkey believes, or Turkey has branded as terrorists or supporting terrorist activities. So those are the questions, geopolitical questions. that come to mind with this terrible terrorist attack that took place in Istanbul. Let's now shift focus to FTX. This is a big story, or it could be a big story, but let's see how the media flush this one out. The very Democrat Ukraine friendly media. Let's see how they play this one. But at this moment, with FTX, it looks like, well, it doesn't look like, I don't want to say that. We could have a very big money washing operation taking place. And I say we could have. We don't know this for sure. Here is what we do know. Let's talk about what we do know. We know that the Biden White House has given 60, 70, 80 billion, who knows the number, in the last 8 months to Ukraine for this conflict. That we do know. We know that there was tens of billions given to Ukraine before the conflict. This money that was given by the Biden White House was meant to keep the Zelensky government afloat, was meant to provide military aid, pay the salary of soldiers, pay the salary of Ukraine President Zelensky, pay the salary of his administration, keep the economy running, all of these things. That is what we do know. Now, an audit of all this money and if all this money was put to the use that the Biden White House claims, that's a whole different story. Even people like Marjorie Taylor Greene now is sounding off and saying not a dollar more to Ukraine until we understand exactly where this money is going and what it's being used for. And it's no secret. Another thing that we know, that we definitely know, is that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. It always has been. It still remains so, and it probably will be for the foreseeable future. So we also know that this is a very corrupt country, extremely corrupt. So that's another thing that we know. Now, we know that FTX, that they put together as this conflict got underway, this exchange platform, crypto Bitcoin exchange platform, run by the 30-year-old wonder kid Sam Bankman-Fried, who goes by the nickname, the initials SBF. So you have FTX and you have SBF. Anyway, we know that the FTX, they partnered with a crypto exchange in Ukraine. They partnered with some other entities. I won't get into the details. No need to get into all the details of it. But they partnered with a bunch of other entities in the crypto space, along with the Ukraine Ministry of Communications and Technology, as well as the Bank of Ukraine. And what did they do? They created, and this was groundbreaking at the time, CoinDesk actually reported that this was groundbreaking, and actually SBF said this was groundbreaking. Those were his comments. This has never been done before, and this is a groundbreaking partnership. They created a platform where people could donate their Bitcoin and their crypto via FTX, and FTX would work with partners in Ukraine and other partners in the crypto space, and this Bitcoin would then get converted to fiat with the help of the Bank of Ukraine, and it would get converted to hryvnia, the local currency, and then it would be put to good use in Ukraine to pay for military aid, to pay for food, to pay for medical things, so whatever. It was just getting used to keep the Ukraine government afloat. That's another thing that we know. Now, what don't we know, and what could, and if we do know this, and if we do find out what's going on, this is what could shed some light as to whether this was some sort of money washing operation or whether this was not a money washing operation. What we don't know, but what is being claimed, and right now I have to be very clear now, this is just what's being claimed, We don't really have the hard evidence. And I think to myself, will we ever be able to get evidence of this? That's the part that I don't know. But what is being claimed is that the money that the Biden White House was giving to Ukraine in the form of military aid and the activities of FTX in Ukraine to turn this Bitcoin to fiat was actually a money washing operation. That is what's being claimed. The Biden White House was giving money to Ukraine. It is being claimed that Ukraine, the Ukraine government, and various Ukrainian entities were investing in FTX and were investing in this crypto donation platform, right? Let's just call it, probably there was a lot of entities involved, but let's just call it a crypto investing donation platform. And as the Bank of Ukraine was converting this crypto to fiat in order to help Ukraine was taking the money that the Biden White House invested and giving it to FTX and this crypto investing platform, of which FTX was then taking that money and donating to the Democratic Party. That's another thing we know. We know that FTX donated $40 million to the Democratic Party. That's another part that we know. So I hope that made sense, because I'm also flushing this out now for the first time, and I'm, kind of relaying it back to everybody. That's what was happening. That's what was happening. The Biden White House was giving military aid to Ukraine. FTX created this donation platform with the government of Ukraine and converting the crypto donated into hryvnia. But at the same time, there are claims that Ukraine was taking the money that the Biden White House was investing in Ukraine and investing that into FTX, or investing a portion of that into FTX. And then FTX was taking that investment from the Ukraine government and pouring it back to the Democratic Party and the Biden White House for the elections and all of these things. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, in a very simplistic nutshell, what is being claimed to have taken place. Will we ever know the truth as to the level of involvement of the Ukraine government or various Ukraine companies in FTX? I think that's the key. That's the missing part to this story. Because we know that FTX donated to the Democratic Party. We know that. We know that the Biden White House gave money to the Ukraine government. And we know that FTX was taking donations and taking money and converting that into local hryvnia for the Ukraine government as well. But what we don't know is, did the Ukraine government, or were Ukrainian entities invested in FTX? And were they taking money from the Biden White House that was meant to go to military aid and food and equipment and everything else? Were they taking that money and pouring a part of that back into to FTX, so that FTX would take that money and push it back to the Biden White House? It does sound like a classic textbook case of money laundering, money washing, but we just don't know. And I don't even know if we'll be able to find this out, given that Ukraine is incredibly corrupt, given that Ukraine is in the middle of this conflict with Russia. How can we possibly find out if this was going on? I mean, you would need an investigation. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. But, this is Ukraine. People forget Ukraine was involved in Russiagate. Ukraine was involved in Ukrainegate. Ukraine was very anti-Trump, pro-Hillary Clinton in 2016. There was all kinds of stuff going on. People forget about Burisma and Alexandra Chalupa and the Ukrainian government lobbying, the Ukraine embassy in D.C. and the lobbying that they were that was taking place in 2016 to get Hillary Clinton elected. Most likely, my guess, and this is just a guess, was that they wanted Hillary Clinton elected because they wanted to start this whole Russia thing. They wanted to egg on this Russia conflict back in 2016 when Russia was in a much weaker state back then. And it probably, if they could have gotten Hillary Clinton elected and if they could have poked the bear and started some sort of conflict in the Donbass or egged on the conflict in the Donbass in the east, then most likely in 2016-17, Russia would not have been able to withstand the sanctions, shock and awe war that they directed at Russia in the first 3-4 weeks of the conflict that did take place in 2022. That's just my guess, is that Trump came in and he kind of spoiled the plan to get the whole Ukraine thing going in 2016-17. Hillary Clinton would have gotten it going. She would have given the green light, and that would have made things very difficult for Russia, because in 2016-17, the Russian economy was much more dependent on the collective West, and I don't think they would have been able to have withstood the sanctions like they have now that the collective West had been planning to put on them. So anyway, a lot of questions, and I just don't have the answers. Anyway, let's make this a quick video, and let me do a clown world here. And actually, no. I don't want to do a clown world just yet. Let's make this not a long video, not a quick video, but let's make this a medium length video. Let me read you, and then I'll get to my clown world. Let me read you another excerpt from the New York Times. And it's always important to read and talk about articles from CNN, New York Times, BBC, because you're getting a different viewpoint. You're actually getting into the minds of the neocons and the neoliberals and the globalists when we go through these articles. It doesn't mean that this is my analysis. This is not my analysis. This is not my thinking. This is me relaying to everybody what the globalists are thinking, what the neocons are thinking, what the Department of State is thinking. And you get that. When you read the New York Times and when you read CNN, you actually get into the minds of these people and how they're viewing things. And this New York Times article that ran the other day, it referenced many Washington insiders and a lot of anonymous sources, of course. But they're claiming that these anonymous sources in the Biden White House, they're claiming that they believe this conflict between Russia and Ukraine is going to stall in the winter. It's going to freeze for 6 months. Once again, this is not my analysis. This is what the New York Times is claiming via their sources. So let me just read you what this is what RT is summarizing from this New York Times article, and I'll put a link to the archived. I'll put a link to the archived version of this New York Times article. But let me read you what's going on here. The U.S. believes Russia's military operation in Ukraine is going to slow down significantly during the upcoming winter. Senior Biden administration officials have told the New York Times. Washington expects advances by each side to come to a halt, the paper reported on Saturday. According to the unnamed officials, the weather-enforced pause, that's a quote, in the conflict could continue for up to 6 months. Lower temperatures and frozen ground would make it easier for tanks and trucks to move around. But, according to the New York Times, heavy snows and cold weather would still complicate mounting an offensive for the Russian forces. Instead, Moscow would likely focus on continued strikes on Kiev troops, Ukrainian military bases, infrastructure, and the electrical grid, the sources claim. The Biden administration officials also said that it was crucial for the U.S. and its allies to use this purported winter pause to rebuild Ukraine's stocks of defensive and offensive weapons. Very important claim there from the New York Times. Quote, Ukrainians look like they're going to continue to press forward with sabotage and subversion attacks on Russian lines. These are targeted assassinations and just general sabotage against Russian-controlled areas inside Ukraine, Seth G. Jones, Senior Vice President at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, told the New York Times. Meanwhile, Kiev has ruled out any pause in the military operations. We can't freeze anything. We are not a refrigerator, Alexei Danilov, the head of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, stated. We can liberate our territories regardless of the weather, regardless of the season, he said during a televised marathon on Saturday. So I will put a link to the New York Times article down below and give it a read and let me know what you think in the comments down below. But you have a lot of narratives about where this war is heading to. Because, as I said in many videos, it looks like the lines have now been drawn, like very clear lines have been drawn as to where the Ukraine military is and where the Russian military is. And some of those boundaries are defined by the Dnieper River, others not so much, but and other rivers up north as well. But we've now had the events of Kherson and Pavlivka, and all these things have happened in the past week or two. And there's a clear understanding where both sides sit. And so everyone is wondering, as winter is fast approaching, for many places winter has arrived, where do we go from here? And there's been a lot of talk about the ground hardening, and is that an advantage for Russia? Is that an advantage for Ukraine? Does the ground hardening, is that something that General Surovikin is going to use to his advantage, coupled with the 300,000 partial mobilization? Is that what he's going to use to sweep through Ukraine and to deliver a final, a decisive blow to the Ukraine military in this conflict? Is Ukraine going to use their momentum that they've gained through Kherson, through the Russian withdrawal of Kherson? Are they going to use that momentum as well as more mercenaries, more money, more NATO involvement in order to push towards Zaporozhye and then Melitopol? That is kind of the picture, the big picture as to where we are. And the Duran, Alexander, actually on his channel, he was one of the first people, if not he was the first, to actually talk about, this was like 3-4 months ago, the ground hardening in Ukraine in the winter. Go back to his videos. He was talking about this in August, in July, about the winter and what it would mean when the ground hardens. And the weather is a factor that we just don't really know. Yes, the ground is going to harden, but in this New York Times article, they claim that snow could complicate things for the Russians. Of course, you have other analysts who are saying the fact that the Ukrainians are going to lose their cover from the trees and from the forested areas is an advantage for Russian air superiority. They're not going to be able to hide themselves as well. So it's a lot of analysis and speculation from many people, including what Alexander noted 3-4 months ago with the ground hardening. And that could play towards the Russians' advantage. I actually believe that in one of his videos, like in August, I believe, or September, I think Alexander said that he was skeptical about claims from the collective West that snow may make it difficult for the Russians to operate. I think Alexander said that the Russians know how to operate in these types of weather conditions. Actually, they thrive in operating in these types of winter weather conditions. I mean, it's Russia. It's the Russian military. They trained for this stuff. So anyway, that was what New York Times sources said. That's what these experts in the Biden White House, this is what they claim is going to happen. A 6-month pause. That goes against the analysis of many other people. But I am just giving you their view of things. Of course, they would like nothing more than a 6-month pause. Actually, I think Gonzalo noted this in a video he did the other day, that a pause in the fighting is, as the New York Times, one of their sources claims, would be a good way to rearm the Ukraine military. They would like a pause, because a freeze, a pause, whatever you're talking about, they would like that, because it would mean that you can regroup and rearm both sides. Actually, it's not just the Ukrainian side, but for the Ukraine military, it gives them the ability to get more weapons in there, to get more mercenaries in, to get more training in. Let's not forget that Ukraine soldiers are training in Poland and in the UK, and now I hear they're training in Spain, and there are rumors about Greece. I don't know. They're rumors. These are just rumors. But, who knows how many Ukrainian men are training in NATO countries, in EU member states. So a 6-month freeze could serve NATO and the collective West very well. So that's the situation. That's what I wanted to say with regards to the New York Times article, and and just kind of tie in all the other different analysis that has been coming out over the past 2 weeks, given everything that has happened in Kherson, and given the fact that we are going to start to see the weather conditions change, and weather is unpredictable. We really don't know what the next month will bring. Is it going to be a hard winter? Is it going to be a mild winter? Or is the ground going to freeze? Is it going to freeze to the extent that people are expecting? We don't know. That's something that's going to be very hard to predict, I think. We're just going to have to wait and see. And then we're going to have to wait and see if the plan of Surovikin is indeed to use the hardening of the ground to mount an offensive. We stated at the Duran that Surovikin is on record as saying that he's going to mount an offensive. That's what he told Shoigu in his statement the other day. He said that the Russian military will go on the offensive. But what does that mean? He wasn't specific, of course. Rightly so, obviously so. He wasn't specific as to where the offensive is going to be, but he could be meaning Donbass. He may mean Donbass and Kherson. He may mean North, Belarus down. That's another thing that we just don't have the answer to. But anyway, the mobilization is another question mark, now that I'm thinking about it. Scott Ritter was spot on in his analysis many months ago when he said that Russia needs to mobilize more. They need more and more people. He was right, no doubt about that. And he was also right saying that that Ukraine is training soldiers and military, and they're bringing them in as well. There's the Russian side, there's the Ukraine side, and so the mobilization. I've heard from various people, completely anecdotal, from various people in Russia that it's much more than 300,000, much more. I can't confirm this, and it's completely anecdotal. But I've heard numbers of 400,000 to 600,000. I don't know. How can I confirm this? And it's just completely anecdotal from people in Russia who are saying everyone knows someone who has been mobilized. Everyone, they're saying, knows someone who has been mobilized. That's a lot of people. It's a country of 140, 50 million. And it's completely anecdotal, but you sit there and you hear this from 10 different people who come to you and say, well, I've got 3 coworkers who have gotten mobilization papers. And then someone else says, in a different city, says, I know people, I have 2 family members who have gotten it. And someone else says, well, I live in this city, in Kazan or Ekaterinburg or whatever, and I know 3 people who have been mobilized. And you start to say, it's anecdotal, but gosh, a lot of people seem to know people who are getting mobilized. It seems like it's more than 300,000. I can't. There's no way to confirm that. Anyway, let's do a clown world. This will be a quick clown world, and it comes from the clown newspaper of the world, the Daily Mail, thedailymail.co.uk. Is it still .co.uk or is it .uk now? Anyway, the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail ran a story, and I won't put up the pictures because I just don't want to put up the pictures because I don't like the pictures. But they ran the pictures. Daily Mail actually ran these pictures, and I just don't like them. It just really upsets me when I see photos like this. But they ran these pictures. It was a headline story. The title of their story reads, "Collaborators Held as Moscow Leaves a City of Booby Traps. Angry locals in Kherson confront men as they are tied to lamp posts after being accused of helping Vladimir Putin's troops during Ukraine invasion." And the photos that the Daily Mail puts up there are people, civilians, tied to lampposts. And there's a lady kind of yelling at these civilians. And it's a clown world because it's the Daily Mail, but it's also a clown world because this is the UK. Supposedly it's a collective West where they believe in human rights, where they believe in the rule of law, supposedly. A photo like this, at least the UK or the US that I remember, if you put up a photo like this of civilians tied to a lamppost, even if they're accused to be collaborators, accused, that's the key word, Americans, people in the UK would be horrified at a photo like this. And so would the Daily Mail. Maybe not the Daily Mail, but I would like to think that back in the day, the Daily Mail would be horrified at a photo like this and say something like, look, maybe they are collaborators, maybe they're not. But at this moment, they're accused collaborators and, a trial needs to take place and you just can't tie people to a lamppost. I mean, this is horrific. Tie people to an outdoors lamppost. I mean, but they're running these photos and they have no problem with it. And this is supposedly, allegedly, this is the collective West of human rights and rule of law. And I don't put up the photo because when you look at the photo, it's not very graphic, but when you look at the photo, it's horrible. Even if they are collaborators, they deserve a trial. They deserve to be treated fairly. And this is a form, in my opinion, this is a form of torture. I think it's definitely a form of torture. You're torturing civilians. So anyway, I don't know if this is UK propaganda. I don't know if this is Ukraine propaganda. All of these images, I don't know if they're staged. I don't know if they're real, but here's the guy that's driving around Athens. Drives around Athens and he's telling all the people in the apartments, I'll come and I'll pick up your old washers, your old dryers, your old air conditioning. I'll pick it all up for you. And everyone thinks it's free. He's just going to come and pick up all of my scrap, and it's a free service, and I can finally get rid of all of this old stuff. He comes up to your apartment. They pick it up. They load it up in their truck, and then he says, give me 40 euros. And you're like, what are you talking about? Because most people don't ask him up front. Is this free? Am I going to pay you? They just let him come up. He takes the stuff, and then they think it's free, and then he says, I want 40 euros. And they sit in your apartment and they're like, give me 40 euros or give me 50 euros or 60 euros, whatever. Anyway, I was talking about this Daily Mail article. I went off on a tangent. I will end the videos there. My point on all of this was that the clown world of all of this is that the collective West is not acting like the collective West that I remember. People would be horrified at this, and media organizations would be horrified at this. Doesn't matter what side you're on. Doesn't matter. You don't tie up civilians to light posts, plain and simple. Just don't do it. And they're accused, they're alleged, they have not been found guilty of any such things. So anyway, that's the video, guys. TheDuran.locals.com. Look for us on Rockfin as well. link down below to our Rockfin channel, and plug into Alexander's channel, plug into the Duran's channel. We are on all the platforms: Rumble, BitChute, ODYSEE, YouTube, and Telegram. We are also on Telegram. And the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.